I'd like to call to order the September 24th, 2012 meeting. Can I get roll call, please?
Yes, Mrs. Kraut.
Here.
Mr. Thied.
Present.
Mrs. Funderburg.
Here.
Mrs. Buckley is excused. Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Kudrick.
Present.
Mrs. Beard's here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on the items. If any member of the board or the citizens request discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent portion of the agenda. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Education of the regular meeting of August 27, 2012, and the study session of September 10, 2012. Item B, approve the personnel actions as submitted by Rebecca Peck, Director of Human Resources, retirement elementary teacher and custodian, resignation, 2 social studies teachers, foreign language teacher, paraprofessional, and a bus driver recall. 6 elementary teachers, social studies teacher, shared time elementary teacher, and a bus aide employment. Auto tech teacher, business technology teacher, 3 elementary teachers, French teacher, media technician, and 2 bus drivers. Item C, approve the bills for payment submitted by Sherry Papazoglu, Director of Business and Operation, in the amount of $1,891,042.97.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Ms. Funderburg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed, 7-0. Next item is report of the superintendent. I'll turn it over to Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item in my report tonight is board approval is needed of the best practice incentive resolution. Recall, board members, that the state has come forth this year with 8 best practice concepts for school districts, and in order to receive $52 per student, a school district must be compliant with a minimum of 7 out of 8. I'm happy to report that we are compliant with 7 out of 8. The only one that we're not compliant is the physical education requirement, and I'm not aware of any school districts that are able to meet that requirement at this point in time either, so we need board approval for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move the Board of Education adopt the best practice resolution as recommended and submitted by the superintendent.
Support.
I got a motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Mrs. Kraut. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. 7-0, or correction, 6-0, motion passed.
Okay, next item, we had an appeal of a student expulsion. That appeal was heard by a committee of the board prior to our last study session, and now we're at a point where action needs to be taken. And Mr. Kuduk, I believe we have a public comment that's relative to
Yes.
this issue.
Yes, Joseph Sparing, or,
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's for item C. What about item B?
Oh, it should be,
no, B.
It's
This
B.
is B.
It's B.
it's B. I know, it's hard to. C is a reinstatement.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Do you wanna speak, sir? Okay, go ahead, Mom. Can you grab the microphone and turn it on, please? That way we can.
Gotcha.
Here, I can probably do that, Wolfie.
John, this is your specialty.
Test.
No. I've already appealed this one. He was expelled for a statement I believe he didn't make. There is a video of this. There's no way, seeing the video, that he could have made this statement that the school says he did. I would like the expulsion to be reversed. However, he is doing homebound schooling right now. He's doing great in it. I don't want that taken away. I want him to continue with the homebound. I just don't want this on his record, especially when it's false. If I ever do get him to go to college, this could follow him, this could ruin him. Not to mention it can affect his career when he gets older. I would like that taken off his record. They can't prove, even with the video. If you all could just view the video, you would see he didn't say this. There's no way he said the school has changed their story 3 different times. My son hasn't. He's sticking to the story. And like I said, the video shows it all. So if you could just take this off his record. But I would like to continue with the homebound services. We all know the school, actually, they don't want him in there because, you know, if you look at his records, he's not the greatest student. He cannot function in a school setting. He's doing pretty good with homebound. I want him to continue that. What else am I supposed to say? He's good? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to revisit that in this issue, there was a hearing panel comprised of principals, administrators from other buildings, and the hearing panel recommendation was for an expulsion. As we just heard, this was appealed to a committee of the board also, and you have a motion in front of you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move the Board of Education support the recommendation of the Board Expulsion Committee to uphold the expulsion of student number 200-12383.
Got a motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Ms. Funderburg. Are there any questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
5-1, motion passed.
Next item, student reinstatement. Again, as is per our practice, we form a reinstatement committee when a student is eligible to be reinstated to the school district. You have some background information on this particular student in your packet. And there is a recommendation from the reinstatement committee also in your packet. So again, we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the school reinstatement committee to reinstate student 200-1389 to Romulus Community School.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Funderburg, supported by Mr. Theed. Are there any questions?
Comments?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I just want my colleagues on the board to understand that I appreciate, or to know that I appreciate the work that they've done, but I cannot support this reinstatement for the simple fact that it involves drugs.
Are there any other comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, 5-1, motion passed.
Okay, my next item, at our last study session, we had discussed class sizes and our staffing process, and unfortunately, you know, when a district like ours is in declining enrollment, it's very difficult to staff accurately because we have students trickling in, and we no longer have a bank account where we can afford to have unnecessary teachers. Even though we would like to have nice low class sizes all the time, it's just not sustainable for us in the current economic climate. Some of you, and we had someone at public comment who expressed some concerns about the class sizes and asked for a report, which I provided information to the board last week. I asked Rebecca just to give an update On our staffing, I'm happy to report also that the district will qualify for 31A money and is able to reduce elementary class size through sustaining smaller classes as compliant with that grant. So we have some good news about our class sizes and our staffing. Rebecca's going to share that one.
Yep.
So this is an update to the one that you received on September 7th.
So from the first day of school, opening day to last Friday, which is where we made the final, the staffing decisions as far as class sizes go and how to allocate our 31A money. From that, in that 2-week period or 9 school day period, we saw an increase of about 350 students. So what that told us, we kind of leveled off of where our students were coming from. We might receive a few more. We're going to continue to work on getting those students in the door before count day, but we're pretty rest assured that here's where we're going to be. So we were able to get those 31A allocated teachers into the classroom starting Monday, last Monday. Right. I'm getting my weeks all mixed up here. We wanted to do that as quickly as possible. You can see in the student-to-teacher ratio, we went down to 16, and that is thanks to the 31A funding that we were eligible for. We used all of our 31A funding at this point to reduce our class sizes by adding additional teaching staff.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
The ratio numbers, are they more prevalent in elementary schools, or are we kind of seeing that throughout the district?
As far as
the 16 students to 1 teacher, is it mostly that particular number occurs in the elementary, or
Our
are we
cla-
also having that in some of the high school classes as well?
our class sizes are smaller in the elementaries than they are in the high school, but that's typical. You know, I do it across the district only because that helps us determine what our appropriate staffing level should be, because we understand that there's more students in a high school classroom that can be successful in a high school and middle school classroom than can be in an elementary classroom, particularly the lower L. We try to get our lower L classroom sizes as small as we possibly can. I look at it from a staff to teacher ratio.
How many of our classes have like 30 kids?
Are you talking elementary?
Yeah.
There's Barth first grade is probably around 30 kids per class. And again, I wish, I would have loved to have been able to add another section into there. It just wasn't in the budget. WIC, 4th grade. And again, I'd have to go back and look at I take the raw number of students in that grade, and I just cut it in half. That's not how it always works. Sometimes, the principals will look at the class makeup and say, okay, I'm going to put 32 in this class and 28 in this class, depending on the student population that we have. So I'm assuming, though, that at least one of the classes at WIC has 30 students in it.
While you're looking, our class limitation is, for lower L is 32,
33,
33, and upper L.
35,
And do we have any that are above the limit?
no.
Now, isn't there a grade at one of the schools where we've had a couple years ago that had a large influx of students, and it's kind of been carrying out, like, they should be, what, 2nd, 3rd graders right now, where we've kind of got a large number in one of the schools?
We did, but we saw quite a reduction in that, in the school that you're referring to at Hale Creek. Is that the one that you're thinking about?
It was a certain grade.
It was a certain grade, it keeps moving each year, there's like there was a group, I can't remember which one it was.
I think there's 2 bubbles of 3. Where we
Yeah.
have
Yeah, there was,
sections
where
per
they
grade.
keep
Yeah.
moving, they jump from year to year because of that population, it was just
They'd be in
Yeah.
the middle school now.
would they be in the middle?
There was
There's a
one,
couple.
there was one section, our kindergarten class at Hale Creek was very large 2 years ago, so we saw a very large first
So our
grade.
2nd grades, it's
It
pretty
is,
much-
it's not as large as we had wanted it to be. It's not what we had planned for this. Fortunately, again, I'm referring back to that 31A money.
Yeah,
So-
Rommel 6th grade is a large group.
5th grade,
Fifth grade,
correct.
I'm
5th
sorry,
grade,
is a
they've
large group as
got
well.
3 classes, don't
They
they?
do.
Okay, that's
They
the one
do.
I'm talking about, so they're up in 5th grade now.
We did,
Okay.
and we ended up using, we were able to leverage 31A monies
Okay.
to add another section to that. They were above their contract limit as
Right.
well.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
The 31A, is this new money or basis every year based on our qualifications, or what is it?
I'm gonna
It's
let
ba-
Sherry talk to that.
It's an annual calculation that the state does. So it can divvy, I mean, it can be different, I should say, from year to year, but it's pretty consistent.
And how much money were we talking
About
about? this year?
1.3 to 1.4 million dollars.
And it's a categorical, which means that the legislature can take it away
Correct.
at some point in time,
And it's
based on foundational.
and it's earmarked categorical, it can only be used
Absolutely.
for staffing.
Certain
At risk.
It's at risk, right? Certain qualifications that the
Well,
district
where
has to
I'm
meet to
going
get that.
is, where I'm going with my line of questioning is, I recognize the benefit of smaller class sizes, but I'm also hearing this voice inside of me saying, $2 million deficit, could this money have been used to
No.
offset any other areas? So that's where I was
Unfortunately,
going with
no.
the question.
No.
Isn't it, once we get this, we're actually gonna get a payment of that 31A money on our first
It
date?
will come in 11 separate payments throughout
Right,
the
so
year,
we
starting
start getting
October
it,
20th.
it's not like we gotta wait till the end of the year
No.
to get it, so we're starting to get it when we get our payments.
October 20th, we'll get the first payment.
Okay.
One follow-up question, do you have their, Rebecca, do you have the counts by classroom for kindergarten? Do we have any kindergarten classroom over 28 kids?
We might at WIC,
Well, we might or we do.
yeah.
I mean, might and do, because I talked to a parent that said there is 30 kids. So what is might and yes or no? Can we have that?
I'm gonna have to say yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
I haven't checked the numbers today, Mr. Thede. Sometimes, you know, certainly in the first month of school, what we've recognized in Romulus is that our kids sometimes will move out. So when I say might, I don't mean it disrespectfully in any way, shape, or form. I'm just basing it on what our school district has shown in the past, and sometimes our students will move out before we make it to count day.
I guess my biggest concern is I look at kindergarten as the foundation of their education, that's really a critical start. And if they don't get a good start, then they have trouble with reading and math, and it continues. So kindergarten is so vital that's really important that they either have a smaller class size or they have an assistant.
I think I agree with you 100%. I think everybody here would agree with that. One of the things that we do with our Title I funds, and maybe Dr. Daniels can address this more specifically, is we focus our Title I CIAs, which are certified teachers, in our K-2 programming. So they're assigned to, they're specifically assigned to work in the kindergarten through second grade interventions, pulling those students out, giving them those extra supports that they need to keep them on track. Did I cover it well enough?
So what are we doing for the class that have over 30 in there? Are they getting an aid every day?
Again, I can't speak to what's going on in the classroom every day, but I know that the Title I funding supports the K-2 initiative in the CIAs, with the CIAs.
When, can we get a report to kind of let us know what actually is going on and what it looks like in each school?
I'll give you, after count day, I can definitely give you exactly where our numbers are at, who's in what classrooms, and then I can at that point, I can also probably get you some scheduling of how we're utilizing our Title I CIAs. We've got our great principals in the back. Okay. Okay. If that would help.
Yeah, I think we're just more of us going definitely back to the concern that our parent had
Yep.
At our study session last time when she was really concerned about the numbers, and so pretty much kind of keeping to our word as a board to make sure that we are doing every child a service instead of a disservice. And so if we could find out what those numbers are, where they've settled, and then also to how often is a CIA in the classroom? Are they there every day? Is it kind of like a as needed basis? What does that look like? So then we can get an idea of, you know, one, what our conversation needs to be so that we have some factual talking points to parents who are concerned about that issue. But then also too, you know, it definitely plays a factor in budgeting and how we look forward into the future when we have to budget. You know, where do we need to, you know, kind of shift things around or do something different, so.
Anybody else have any comments, concerns, questions? Okay, so we're gonna get that at count day. Now, count day's next week?
No, it's,
October 4th?
Or
So
2
shortly
weeks,
after
2
that,
weeks.
so with a little luck, I'll get it in the weekly update. That's
Okay,
right.
good.
Next, we have policy 3510, second reading and approval. Again, that was first presented to the board back in August, and that's a policy that involves compliance concerning our debt, our school bonds, and basically was a recommendation of our audit
Our
firm and
tax-
our debt
correct.
counsel.
That's correct.
Or bond counsel.
Bond counsel.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move the board approve second reading and adoption of policy 3510 as submitted.
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Ms. Funderburg. Are there any questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passed, 6-0.
Next item, Romulus Middle School surplus band equipment. This is equipment that's no longer functional and would, even if it were able to be repaired, would have little value. The band department would like to basically dispose of this. Now, they get a fair amount of money. In fact, the figure that you have a letter from Principal Sulhaney stating that the company is offering to pay $1,000 for this surplus equipment. We tried to get something from the company. We don't have anything in writing, but the understanding with Mr. Sulhaney is that's the deal. If it's anything different than that, then we would have to bring that back to the board. The other question that was asked when this came to the board previously was, why didn't we get bids from other companies? We did check with other music companies, and to the best of our knowledge, Sherry, this is the only company that buys this type of equipment, or at least the only, one around here. I'm not gonna say the only company in the world or the country, but the only local company that's involved in salvaging.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move the Board of Education approve the attached list of band surplus equipment, of band equipment to be declared surplus, please, with the stipulation as the superintendent suggested about the $1,000 limit.
Support.
Motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Ms. Funderburg. Are there any questions regarding this?
Well, it's not more of.
Go ahead.
Not a question, is more of a
Comment.
comment. Could you check, because, on here, they have drums on here, and I wanna say that, Ms. Patrick was able to, repurpose those for the high school as practice drums for the drummers, so.
The ones that the high school had, instead of recycling them, is that what you're?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on this list, there are two, snare drums, and I believe that those two were repurposed, so
Oh.
if you could just double check those.
I think it says remove on the,
Well, it says
Well, it
REMO.
says
I'm
Remo.
not sure
You know-
what that
I'm
means.
thinking that that's.
And I'm not sure.
That's the brand, I believe, Remo is
Okay.
the brand.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
So we were wrong, the band guy.
Right.
He would know.
In light of that, I'm probably gonna need to clarify whether that was $1,000,
Yeah.
including the drums or not.
would
So we'll
agree.
clarify that, and
Yeah.
if the board is okay with, if the $1,000 included the drums and we take that off, obviously it would be less.
That kind of wiggle room is fine.
Okay.
And I just had one other question, it's in the description, it says exchange for overhaul base clarinet and French horns and cash, are we, recycling cash? So, I mean, was that,
I don't know, but if we are, I want to get some.
was that, they're saying that for cash instead of
Yes.
and cash?
I'm guessing that's what it
Okay,
should
I
say.
just wanted to make sure, just for clarity, somebody go back and look at it and it's like, okay.
And these proceeds will go back into the band department. I want to
That
make
was
that
going
clear
to be
as
my
well.
question.
Will it be specifically for the
It's
middle
spec-
school or does
yeah, it will
go
be
into their-
specifically for the middle school, just as we treated the high school surplus band equipment.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passed.
Was the motion supported?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Who's
Rob,
this?
Rob
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
Danielle. That's
Ron
all.
made it and Danielle?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion passed, so.
Sorry. Okay, next, item H, items of interest. I'm sorry.
Nope, we
Item
still got
G.
cooperative.
Yep, item G. Last study session, you heard a nice presentation about our new LIFT program at the high school involving some of our older students who don't quite fit into a center program and are preparing for adult life. And you saw what's going on there, and good things are really happening. In fact, word got out. I found out from Mrs. Mitchell last week that Wayne Risa is going to showcase that program with other high schools across the county. And actually, we've had another district, South Redford, knocking on our door asking to admit, at this point, one particular child. And so we do a cooperative agreement in situations like that. So you had that in your packet last week. And what we're asking for is for the board to approve that cooperative agreement with the South Redford schools that will net us the foundation allowance plus a little additional support money to make sure that the integrity of the program is able to be maintained with one additional student.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move the Board of Education approve the superintendent. That's worded wrong. Move that the Board of Education approve the recommendation of the superintendent to enter into a cooperative education program agreement between South Redford Schools and Romulus Community Schools.
Support.
Motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Mrs. Beard. Are there any questions?
Discussion?
Yes, sir. Well, go ahead, Mr. McLaughlin. first.
Just wanted to clarify, this in no way limits our own students from entering the program, right? Our students get first crack, and if there comes a point where it's too crowded, others that may join us later would be the first to leave, correct?
We would never not accept one of our own resident students.
Absolutely. Thank you. I kinda knew that, just wanted everybody within earshot to know that.
And I would like to note that they have to provide the transportation too.
Yeah, that's in the agreement.
Ms. Funderburg, you had a question?
Well, okay, so in reading for the purpose, it says to permit certain South Redford students. Is that just one student or students? Because that down near the bottom, we say students, provided
Yep.
the students in number 4.
I think it gives them the flexibility for both. That's the way I understood it.
Okay, that's
Right,
what-
right now
that
it's
was
one student.
One of the question that I had, but later on it goes to say, a limit of 3 students.
Yes.
Okay, and then, if that number were to change, do we as a board have to approve that, those additional students?
Normally, we wouldn't bring approval of individual students to the board if we have a cooperative agreement. We could. Remember that this is governed by caseload limitations, and so it's not like we could ever open the floodgate, so to speak, on this type of program. It would probably be a very limited number of students. And this is really at the board's discretion, if the board would like to be notified. I'm not sure that approval would be appropriate. We would certainly be willing to do it that way if that's the board's pleasure, or just notify the board when we do have additional students, particularly because it's a new program and I know everybody's interested in it.
The contract that we're approving
says
stipulates a
3,
maximum
that's
of
why I
3.
was
So if it goes
asking.
over 3, it has to come back just by procedure.
We can do that.
Okay,
Okay.
that's kinda why I was asking, I was
Yeah.
just wondering what the,
Any other questions?
and then, this particular, when does the program start again, Mrs. Mitchell?
Last week.
It's actually gonna start tomorrow, however, I don't believe the student's gonna come till Thursday.
Okay.
Any other questions? And we do have room in the program for up to 3, right? Okay. Okay. All right. All right, and no other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passed, 6-0.
Thank you, and that concludes my report for tonight.
Okay, nope, we got items of interest still.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, we could skip over that one.
I'm off track. Well, real quickly, you have in your packet newsletters from WIC. You have the district calendar, also Barth Weekly Update, Hale Creek Weekly Update, and kudos on the LIFT program, as I mentioned. And now, once again, I conclude my report.
Okay, the next item of business, I have communications expression from the public. I have no other ones here. So the next one is questions and concerns of board members. We'll start with Mrs. Kraut.
I'm just hoping that we can get the monthly calendars that remind us for like the Student of the Month night and so I don't miss something that I shouldn't, because those are so helpful.
Is that it? Mr. Theed, you're next.
Yeah, I have a little issue that I think we need to revisit at one of our sessions about some policy, which ended affecting me personally with my daughter one day being sick. My daughter was sick, had a substitute teacher, and was told she wasn't going home. And the sub assumed that my daughter was upset because she had a substitute teacher. And I'm sure everybody is aware of the story because I wasn't too happy with the situation of a substitute assuming that my daughter was afraid of a substitute. And to me, I think this stuff probably happens quite a bit. I have an issue that my daughter the day before went home sick. We called the doctor. The doctor said watch her. We made an appointment. Went in the next day. She was feeling okay to go into school and had a different sub. And goes to the sub and was crying, and the sub ignored it, assumed that the child was just afraid of a sub. And it was a little bit before finally she went sent down to the office. And what gets me also is the school never contacted me or my wife. It was not till my wife came in at lunch we found out about this incident. And what I'm appalled at is how come subs, when they do a class, does not keep records for the next sub. If the regular teacher is gone, this could have been all alleviated if the one sub would have left a note on the desk and said, Bobby was obnoxious, somebody pulled Karen's hair, and Natalie Theed went home prior the next day. That way the sub would know, but there's none of that, okay? I was told that the sub didn't follow policy, and then I made a phone call, and I was kind of adamant that I didn't want that sub in the class until this was remedied. And then a week later, the sub's in the class again. My daughter goes to school. She's upset. I would hope when that situation happened, when the sub went into the building, somebody would be waiting for us and come in and say, we better tell you something. That sub's in the class again. What can we do? Instead of going to the class, upsetting my daughter. To me, it's an embarrassment to my daughter and affected her whole learning for that day. And a mental aspect of this whole thing that my daughter had to break down again over this that the school caused. So we need to look into how we handle substitute teachers or some kind of daily communication between teachers and in our whole school period. I'm still not happy with the whole incident, so. I mean, and I've heard other parents talk about this one substitute teacher, and I heard the cake and ice cream story, how this sub's great, and I've heard other parents said she's been pretty cruel to their kids. And to me, this was just cruel to tell a kid she's not going home to sit down. I'm assuming that you're just afraid because I'm here. And the funny thing is, my daughter had this substitute in kindergarten. So she was used to her, I believe, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Are you done, Mr. Theed?
I should be done, yeah, because I don't want to go on further.
Okay.
I just wanted to chime in before we get to Ms. Funderburg on John's specific point. We bought into this when we decided we weren't gonna handle our own substitutes, and we outsourced it to PCMI and Call Sub or whatever it's called, Will Call or Will Sub. And the substitutes sign up online. We have no real control until they physically show up in our buildings who's gonna sub in a classroom. That is fundamentally wrong, Mr. Theed, and I'll support any movement you wanna take to correct that. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Funderburg?
Oh, I know what it is. The trunk or treat is gonna be coming up in October. I spoke with, Ms. Plank, and, she was hoping that she could get something on the agenda. But I'm not exactly sure if our action meeting is going to be enough time for her to have that, okay. And so I wanted to know if we could, one, make sure that we get it on the agenda, but I know that it's something that she's done annually. She fundraises for, actually it started off as a community service project from one of her daughters, and she's graciously continued that tradition, and so it's coming up pretty soon, but I just wanted to kind of.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, well, it's not a motion, but it's more of less, do we have time to get it in? Because I'm thinking that it's the say she said it was the
It's gonna be the
I think it's the Saturday before Halloween.
Saturday.
She didn't give us a flyer yet, did she? I
Um,
saw her
they were handing
recently,
them-
and she was gonna bring a flyer by
Right.
that'll have the information. So my suggestion, let's wait until we see the flyer and have the specifics, and then we'll do what we have to do
Okay.
to make sure.
We should be able to get it on the next, even the study session, maybe.
Just post it as an action item,
Yeah.
we're good.
Okay, and then, one other thing, I am currently, and I need to do a formal letter for the board, but I am doing some consulting for, Project ACE. I'm helping them with their communication plan and, some of their, advertising, press kits, media kits, that kind of thing. And so, the consulting is fee-based. I just need to get a letter to the board. One of the things that I did want to let you know is that the partnership between Romulus Community Schools and Project ACE, Romulus is not paying Project ACE for those services. So I just wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of background and let you know what was up. And I will have a more formal letter kind of letting you know what actually is going on and pretty much the time period in which it's going on, what's taking place.
And if I could add in, Ms. Funderburg consulted with me probably about a month ago on this issue, and we looked up the policy and also checked with our attorney, and there is no fiduciary conflict of interest whatsoever, but we thought it would be wise just to let everybody know the circumstances.
Yeah, I just wanted to, make sure that everything was upfront and, didn't appear to be shady or anything like that, because definitely not, a lot of the services that I am doing for them are in-kind services. They're just volunteer donation time. There was just an opportunity where I could actually be paid. So Mama need a job. So, so I took the opportunity. So.
And for those of you not familiar with Project ACE, that's a program that came to us a couple of years ago that's really intertwixed and intertwined with our college culture goal. Getting more kids to college, and they've done some wonderful things for the district. They're supported by state and federal grant money primarily, and are really pursuing some nice things for our high school kids.
And that's it.
Ms. Beard?
I just have two things. I wanted to thank the Romulus DPW for providing us with our float for the Pumpkin Festival and allowing us to participate in the parade. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was two of our students that I know of for sure from Romulus that attend the special ed programs for Wayne Westland were allowed to participate in Wayne Memorial's homecoming dance this weekend, and my son was able to go. And there was another student also from Romulus that also participated that's in the SXI program. And the school did a really good, they had a reserved table for the kids. They had their own spread. They had their own cookies and punch at their own table on the main floor. And they were really very well accepted by all the school there. And it was a good time. They did really well. The kids did really well. And I just kind of thought it was really neat. I wanted to share it.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Thank you. I'll just go in the order that they're written here on the sheet of paper. It's kind of in a circle. I just want to remind, the administration and the building level administrators, please make sure we're blowing our horn with MASB. It's too late for this cycle. The conference is going to be in November, but I just read two press releases in the News Herald. One of them, I believe, was Wyandotte Schools, and another one was Southgate Schools. And one of the programs, I mean, kudos to them. I'm not here to bang them, but to me, it seems like a very trivial program that we easily could have trumped them on. I think theirs is called Big Brother, Little Brother, or whatever. It's like a Reading Buddies program that I know we've been doing for decades. And sorry, Tom. And so I just need to make sure that we're all reminding the state association that we do those things and get our staff and our students recognized. I'm going to skip one. Carl, in your weekly update, you speak about the coaching issue that happened, and you said that the results have been reported to the family. to the parents involved. Are those parents satisfied with the outcome?
They were at the meeting. I attended the meeting with the parents and the coaches, and they left that meeting satisfied in the plan and what was going to happen after that. I haven't talked to them since the debate. They do know how to get in touch with me.
Okay, because, thank you, because Mr. Kudrick's aware that, you know, I became aware of this problem when the parent called me, and I left it to Tom to carry forward, because I don't want to be involved, but the word I have from the parent is they are not satisfied with the resolution. So I'll communicate with the parent again to make sure, and I'll forward that information to you, Carl.
Question. Is that, are we privy to reports like those? Because I guess the first thing read about that was in your update, that was the first time that we actually heard about it.
Right. The board, according to our policy, the board gets a report on that at the end of the year, a cumulative report. Any board member that, actually, I don't have the complete report from the school yet because they finished filling that out after they meet with the parents, which was later last week. If you're interested, or, you know, you can call me, I'd be happy to go over the details with you.
I just don't want it to be an issue that escalates, kind of like how we had with girls basketball.
Right.
It kind of got a little messy.
That's kind of where I was going, is we need to make sure it doesn't fester. Last couple of meetings, we've talked about moving board meetings from here to City Hall. Some additional information has come to my mind, or come to my attention, that make me want to say, let's put the brakes on this. Carl, I'm asking for complete information. I'm being told by Mr. Harper that we do have equipment that is compatible, that it would be a minimal amount of investment to fix the microphones and to get us on television. Wouldn't be live, but it certainly would be an improvement. And I was under the impression that we were looking at a lot of money. And I'd like to have, perhaps if we have to have a work session and invite Mr. Harper here to have a conversation with us, then I think that's what we need to do. But I think we need to put the brakes on spending $5,000 a year moving our meetings when we may not have all the information.
Are either of you aware of this information from Mr. Harper? Well, he didn't share any of that with us, and he was asked, but we'll follow up with him.
Ask him, I was gonna say, ask him about the report he gave to Andy Piazza 4.5 years ago. I have a copy of that at home in my desk.
I think at the last study session, then we asked if we checked on any equipment laying around, inventory.
A floor camera, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of cameras. I mean, did we find anything at the high school? Don't they have a big room in the library?
There used to
Full of
be
stuff?
a technology, or a
'Cause it
room
seems-
right next side of the yearbook room over by the media center that Mr. Wine used to have a class in there with media and stuff like
There
that.
was stuff on the
Yeah,
floor
because
in
I
the media
think
center,
last
too.
year when I was there for the student a month with you, I seen a whole lot of stuff in that room that probably wasn't being used.
Well, I do know
That looks
that
like
they're-
audio and video stuff and.
But they're also in preparation of getting some classes for the high school
Right.
students to utilize that equipment, so.
But if we have it, we don't have to buy it or move
Well,
our
to my,
meetings.
to my knowledge.
It's our
a-
equipment.
A floor camera, I know we rent those out every year for graduation, and I'd have to, I haven't asked the question, but I have to assume if we had them, we wouldn't be renting them out. So it might be that the ones that you've seen are not the same quality or, you know, for television. I don't really know, but I look forward to hearing the information from Mr. Harper.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I've brought up a couple of times over the last year or so, as you have as well, and perhaps other board members have. And I guess when this matter gets brought up about early college type programs or baccalaureate type programs for our schools, there's crickets chirping in the air. So just as a informational item for my colleagues on the board, I'm going to proceed and have informational meetings with some key players that can make this happen. And when I have the full information, I will bring it to this board. Wayne County Community College, I can state publicly, is interested in having a meeting to discuss this. They have not been contacted to date. I will get the information from the school district I'm affiliated with on the west side of the state, and I will proceed with this. This is something we can do for our children. We can receive the fifth-year FTE for this. To me, it's a no-brainer. We can save our family $17,000 per student and get these kids graduated with an associate's degree. So I will proceed with that without administrative support.
Is that, excuse me, is that, 4 years, 5 years instead of 4 years?
Yes,
No?
what would happen, in a nutshell, students that opt to be part of the program would have a 5-year schedule instead of a 4-year schedule. They would take their core classes in the morning or in the afternoon, and then the other classes they would take in partnership with the community college. Wanted to talk about homecoming. Are we doing a parade this year? Do we know?
We
haven't
haven't done
done
a
one
parade the past
couple-
2
Okay.
years, so I don't believe so.
I just wanted to make sure. I drove through Inkster today. Up and down Middle Belt is plastered. There must be 200 lawn signs between probably Van Worden Road and Cherry Hill, advertising that it's homecoming week with Inkster High School and they're having the game and the parade and a carnival. That's a public relations dream. I think we need to look at things like that. I mean, again, building up on the community PR that, let's stay on positive things. Eagles Nest, do we know when it's gonna open yet?
There's some actually staffing issues with the Eagles Nest is why it's delayed. I know that for a fact. I can tell you that one. So
I'll
once
find out. I'll find out when what the
But
anticipated open date will be. but
Usually
you are
about
correct.
usually about the 4th or 5th week, that's when
Yeah.
they usually start opening
Yeah.
up.
We're actively interviewing right now for a key position in that area.
Okay. Thank you. The last thing I had, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I guess this is a question, I don't know if Carl can answer it now or not, but is there an inventory, a written inventory? Has somebody gone through Mount Pleasant? I know we've been dumping stuff there. Do we have an inventory of what's in that building?
We don't have an up-to-date inventory.
Do you know if it's a true statement that some of this obsolete video equipment was taken there?
I don't know the answer to that. It's the first I've heard.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I've heard that we've been salvaging desks and chairs from there, to fill in for shortages. That's, in some instructional materials are still over there that the teachers and principals have used. I haven't heard anything about.
I don't think there's any technology over there, but
Yeah.
we can look, certainly look.
I guess what my bigger concern is I'm hearing that some employees, whether they're administrators or not, I'm not absolutely sure of, but have been allowed to go over there to get things for their buildings or their programs. But how does anybody know that there's something available if they don't go, if we don't say, we have 16 keyboards?
Well, in most situations, what happens is, and for the business office, there's a purchase order that comes through, and before I will approve a purchase order for any type of furniture and or equipment, I make sure that within the district, that type of equipment doesn't exist.
Well,
And then they're invited to go inspect. Now, let me tell you, if you were to go there, most of that equipment is really obsolete.
Oh, I'm
It's
sure.
broke. We're keeping it because we need to create a surplus list to create to the board so that we can dispose of it at some point. And it's a lack of
That's kind of where I
time.
was going. I
Yeah.
just kind of figured that, to me, it's good business practice for us to have an inventory of what we have. I'd even like to see us go through our buildings and inventory the office supplies that may or may not be stockpiled at some of these buildings.
It's a manpower issue, I'll be quite frank with you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I guess I'm the last one here. All right, Mr. McLaughlin brought it up about moving the board meetings. There's from what I understand through Comcast, there is some funding that the city gets for public
mentioned
communication. If somebody could check into that to see if some of that could possibly be
If it's the
earmarked for us.
if it's the same,
Pell or
Peg.
PEG?
Correct.
Peg.
I'm gonna guess at least 3 years ago, I attended a meeting, I don't even remember where it was at, but it was with the county, there were many different districts there, and Comcast was there. And according to them, we were not eligible for those
Right.
funds, and we actually got a letter from the city's attorney stating that we are not eligible for those funds.
Well, what does our attorney say?
I think he, let me look in the files. I don't
So
even
it's
know if I
something you've
got to
already
that
looked at.
point.
If you could research and just
It's
kind of let us
probably
know.
been at least 3 years.
Yeah, pretty close.
Can I
This is
chime
the
in on that?
second time since I've been here
second.
that it's come up.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you. I totally meant to bring this up as part of my conversation about that with the PEG fees. And this goes back to the discussion that we had, John, myself, Carl, and the city representatives, about moving the meetings there. I'm that guy. I said that day. I'm that guy. Okay? We sat in that room and had explained to us how we were gonna get charged for, water, electricity, things of that nature. And the city, it appears, and I have to be careful and not say the city, the cable department seems to have been on a shopping spree, accomplishing their wish list over the last year or so, because just as we may do with sinking fund, they allow that fund to build up and then they have to spend it, or the cafeteria fund might be another example.
This is the city's
The city, the
Yeah.
city receives, 100% of the PEG fees that's collected from Comcast. My point is, there is no reason why the city, if they don't wanna go through the whole legal rigmarole, why the city can't say, okay, Romulus Community Schools, what do you need? And if it's whatever, and the city can be the purchasing agent. I'm prepared to do one of two things. It's that time. Either have Gary or whoever look at this and give us direction on it, or start preparing a cost analysis anytime the city of Romulus wants to use our buildings for elections, for town halls, for what have you. We charge them for electricity, water, etc. What goes around comes around. This district has provided countless resources to this community, as it should. The same taxpayers own both entities. So why that even came into the conversation is beyond me. But since we went there, okay, now I'm up to bat. So a third of the PEG fees need to come to us for our cable needs, or the city needs to be our purchasing agent up to that amount, or we start billing for elections, et cetera. Thank you, Tom, sorry.
And Tom, while we're on this matter, how come Channel 19 is black, do we know?
Well, there goes my next question.
Okay. I meant to,
Hi, Tom.
it's about,
Yes, Channel 19 is dead. It's
And it has
dark as
been.
this table.
It has been for a couple of weeks now.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with the update of the,
There's nothing on
There
it.
was a server issue, but we
Yeah.
resolved that issue on
There's nothing-
Monday.
It's
Is
still
it
black
back-
today.
Is it back to black? See,
so maybe
I haven't been
they
advised
delete-
of that.
Neither
It
have
was
I.
it was working for a while
Yeah,
after they replaced the
it
server.
was.
So, yeah, that's the first I
I
heard of it,
actually,
too.
I was communicating with Carol Harrop. She keeps me in the
really? Yeah.
know. She always lets me know when something's going on with the cable channel, and then, we kind of respond to it from there. We did have some power issues, and I want to say it was 2 weekends ago or
At
last
least, yeah.
weekend. We had some power issues at the high school that caused the server to kind of fail, but we brought it back up. They replaced the server, and then they were able to power it back on, and it came back
Still
up.
down.
Yeah.
But I
It's
haven't
down.
heard that it went back down again.
Yeah.
I'll find out
We
what's
pick
going
things
on
up
with
and
that.
put them down.
Yeah.
Again, that's just us nursing along something that
Right.
we don't have anybody that really that's their job. And so if we hear from you, we address it, but we're kind of in reaction mode.
Yeah.
On Channel 19, none of us live here, so we can't turn on the TV and monitor it.
And I don't want to get you all fired up about this, but I have to let you know, I used to watch Channel 19 all the time. I turned it on every day just to make sure that it was running. I kept a TV in my office for that reason. Well, then Comcast, and I'm not bashing Comcast, but we have to buy boxes
remember
now. And
I
we don't
remember
have the
this.
money for these boxes.
We would, if we had the peg fee.
But we have to buy boxes, so now we're like, Don and I just met about this, and I'm like, okay, where do we have to have the box at? I mean, we need them in each building, I feel. I mean, we're still discussing, because we're gonna have to pay for them, unless we can get that peg money.
Right,
I actually have a guy with Comcast, I'll email you.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Funderburk,
That's what
go
I'm trying to
ahead.
find out. We looked to see if there was some type of, because it's a school, can you
There
donate
is a
them?
representative, when I went to that meeting, don't ask me for the name, because I wouldn't remember, but there was a representative that was supposed to be representing all the districts in the
Okay,
cities.
maybe when you pull that file, you can find that
Yeah, I
information.
think I
and
have a
let us
business
know
card.
what it was, but maybe it might be a good idea to have our attorney to kind of look at it, so we get our viewpoint, because, I mean, if the city came to us and said, we got money, we'd probably, nope, sorry, you don't earn it.
yeah.
You know,
So,
I'm sorry, I mean, but
Yeah,
go ahead, Ms.
I
Funderburk.
was just gonna chime in and kind of add on to, you know, if you could find out what the eligibility requirements were and have those changed, because maybe what we find after 2 to 3 years is that maybe the eligibility has changed and now we qualify.
And I can't remember the specifics on why we
Can't
weren't
either.
eligible,
So we
but
could look
We'll
into
look
that
I'll
into
as
look.
well.
I have a file.
It has to do with the way it was structured. The city had a cable commission, and their function was to collect peg
Sounding
fees
familiar.
and to disperse them. So it's a decision
City.
that needs to be made at the city level, and I would dare say 99.9% of cities say, nope, we're keeping it all to ourselves.
Yeah,
And-
I think we checked with many
Yeah, I
other
agree.
districts and there wasn't anybody that was.
Election days can cost, what, $175 an hour times 10 hour? Just saying.
Okay. Another thing on the board, I would suggest maybe getting a hold of Steve and see what they know, since they are doing these meetings here, to ask their input on the equipment, because quite honestly, I mean, you folks and us, we're not the professionals on this. Maybe they know what we have and what we could need to do it. Get their input on it to see if that's a possibility and get an actual cost.
We can do that.
You know, I would go with theirs, and I mean, we've got people in the district, I think, that's pretty knowledgeable and stuff that could probably get a lot of this done, but maybe get their input on it and see what they come up and let us know. Other than that, that's all I have. Now,
Move to adjourn?
I got a motion by Mr. McLaughlin, supported by Mrs. Funderburk. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed, 6-0.
I've been